We'll bring the meeting to order, call to order. We have two absences, which were noted. I think you have them, Melinda, you know, Bob Buckley and Shane. And did everybody get a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just have my screen here too.
Any changes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Richard. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Tucker, I didn't hear his, but I'm assuming he said aye.
Tucker, could you want to unmute yourself?
I can't hear him at all.
He's muted. I'm going to ask him to unmute himself. Tucker, can you unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted.
Now you are. Perfect. Are you in favor?
I'm absolutely in favor. I'm in favor.
Okay, perfect.
Except in the minutes. Okay, then the minutes are approved.
Okay, so let me go to,
Okay, Deanna, any correspondence?
okay, I have no, I'm just getting my screen here for you 1 second.
Nothing new, no correspondence?
No new
nothing-
correspondence for you. Nope.
Anybody else? Okay, item 4, no correspondence. Item 5, old business. Amy, I think you have the floor, my dear.
Okay, so since our last meeting in February, we finalized a couple projects, which were 49 Church Street for these guys brewing. We ended up working with their financial partners in providing reliance letters for our reports. We did some asbestos sampling for them too under the grant. The project for 134 Providence Street, which was the basketball courts. So we had finalized that. And the YMCA really was our biggest lift. So for the past few months, we were working to get access, get our team in there, do the inspections. We got the draft report for the hazardous building materials ready, and they are putting together an opinion of probable cost. So I figure just quickly in the next few minutes, I can share some of the results with you.
Sure, do you want to grab the expenditures? We'll post that up here. This list, Amy?
No, that's actually the budget. I figured we'd wrap up on that one.
Okay, so let me get out of here then. So would you have a screen for me on the other or not?
I don't. I was basically just going to read off the big stuff.
Okay, go ahead.
So for asbestos, you know, we found a lot of asbestos in the building related to pipe insulation in the walls, behind ceilings. The boilers had pipe insulation on them. Floor tile throughout. So 9x9 floor tile, the mastic, all of the window caulking associated with the exterior glass block. Also the door caulking, window caulking, roofing. So asbestos was a lot of big ticket items. It should be an issue, right? A lot of the asbestos is down on the inside. Also to point out that when it's down on the inside like that, a lot of times the cleanup is easier, right? You're not necessarily setting up containments. You're asking the state to basically go in and do a cleanup procedure. So there's been a lot of deterioration with the building materials on the inside. Lead paint. So there was several components having lead paint, some of the paint on the interior walls, on some of the other features. Lead paint wasn't really a big deal to us, although there were some components. For us, one of the big sort of, not really surprises, but issues that come up in demo is PCBs. So because we're using federal funds, we had to sample for PCBs. We got paint on the interior walls that had PCBs. We had, let me see what else, window glazing that had some PCBs. So luckily they were under 50 parts per million. That's when you start getting in the realm of having to deal with EPA for a cleanup plan. And because the PCBs were under 50, we stay within the state regulations for our abatement. So that was kind of nice. And then we did an inventory of things that'll have to be special handled, like ballasts and mercury containing fluorescent lighting tubes and mercury containing thermostats. We did a full inventory of that. Now, the preliminary OPC, opinion of probable cost, that was developed, just the abatement itself for this large facility is in the realm of $500 to $600, but we're refining.
600,000.
Yeah, sorry. Right. Let's round that number down.
Yeah.
Because if it's $600, I'll pay for it.
She's fine. She's going for, okay, $500,000 to $600,000 for the abatement. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's just the abatement. I want to be able to try to develop some kind of estimate for the demo still.
Yep.
Now, what our next phase to this project is we're taking the information that we have. We know it's asbestos, we know it's lead, we know it's PCB. And now our design folks are going in there to design the abatement, right? So that's our next phase with the YMCA. What we haven't been able to do yet, and Deanna, you can talk a little bit more. We haven't been able to do the phase 2 site assessment, the drilling or removal of the underground storage tank.
So that has to do with a little bit of our attorney needs to still work on getting us, feels uncomfortable doing anything till we're 100% foreclosed on it. I don't have the date of that, but this grant ends in September, which we need to wrap up, I would say August, don't you think? But no later than August at some point. So I'm going to be getting on Mike Driscoll tomorrow and Amy and getting them to understand the critical nature of the time of getting this done. It's really the courts have dragged us on because what happened during COVID, so they're backed up. I want to say, Amy, that I got an email from Amy Wickless that I have to go back and look at my email in a couple minutes. I'll try to go look at it. I want to say she said that we might be able to move forward. They have a court date in June. So I'll look at that and I'll be right back. I'm just going to look check out my email for a second.
It shouldn't really be much to, coordinate to get back out there. Like we've already teed everything up. Plus having gone through this already under Uncas Leap, we have the bid specs, DPW has a contractor at the ready, we can move quickly once we're given the go-ahead for that.
Okay. Yep. So I'll get on that tomorrow, but I want to say she said June, but I will send you an email tomorrow.
Okay. And next on the list was the quarterly report.
Before you move on about the quarterly report, does anybody have any questions about what Amy had to say?
No.
Mark Poulos does.
Mark
Yeah.
does. Go ahead, Mark.
All right. Now, the building has to be what, fully abated before it's demolished, or can it be demolished with some of the materials still in it?
So it can't be demolished with materials in it unless there was something in the structure that was totally deemed unsafe. And we don't really have that issue here. I caveat that to say it's likely the roofing, parts of it will be taken off during demo, but they might be able to get up there and do, the full field, the rubber membrane. They might be able to get that off. Some of the flashing might be segregated with brick and stuff.
But how's the quality of the floors? Can people walk in there if work has to be done, or are there holes or dangers of people falling through?
Yeah, so that would be part of the design. I'm not aware of an area. I breezed through what they drafted for the report today. I didn't see anything where they noted they were unable to inspect.
But there is areas, Amy, just so you know, that there's big holes in the floor that they are down below.
Okay, so our design team are going to, when they go in there, determine whether that's something that can't be accessed, but chances are they're gonna make a contractor secure that part of the floor with something.
So we would have to secure some sort of a grant in the future for demolition or abatement purposes?
You absolutely could, now that you have your inspection, plus you use DPA funds to do it, it makes a good case.
So we could do that. I know that the city is putting aside some money for demolition in the next budget. I've asked for some money and there's some money left in there, Mark. But I believe we haven't got the estimate for the demolition yet, but probably need some funds. If not, going through EPA, going through state DECD, you know, for their monies too for abatement. What are you thinking, Amy? What's the better one for this project? You think EPA?
Well, the nice thing is, I think DECD is gonna run their next round before EPA does,
Okay.
right? So draft up a grant application, throw it into DECD, they don't fund it, then you draft one for EPA.
Yep.
Doesn't hurt.
Yep. But the sooner the better. And so if it means the city taking their own funding, Mark, to do it, that we may want to do that too. Because it's still, when we use grant funds, it does take a long time to get things done and people are waiting. And we do have interest in the property potentially if it's vacant and cleared off. So that might be the impetus of moving forward with something there. Then we get a new project on there, you know, get some taxes and things like that. We're getting nothing right now.
So can we use some of the assessment money for possible future uses of the site to determine possible future uses or not?
We've already used all of our assessment money pretty much.
All right.
You know, there's 30,000. Amy, you want to talk a little bit about this really quick?
I will.
We'll talk about
Yep.
that.
So with our last task order at the last RDA meeting, we took what was left in the hazardous substance funds, which was 37,000, and we put that towards the YMCA to do these design for the abatement, do bid specifications, cost estimating. You have $119 left in your hazardous substance.
Oh, well,
Under the petroleum, we tried to talk EPA into letting us use the majority of the funding for the phase 2 tank removal and the first cut of sampling for the hazardous building materials out of your petroleum grant. And they said, okay. So that left you with about 35,000 left of petroleum funds. That's what you have left to spend. Now, you know, you're limited to petroleum sites, but those funds can also be used. You have a couple of grant administration things to do, wrapping up your grant. EPA wants a full report, a separate report on your grant when you close it. So a little bit of funds usually costs about $3 grand to do that closure report.
So Damien, at some point, do we need to do a motion for that task order for that closure report too?
What I'll do is, as we're approaching, because it takes, you know, a few weeks to put it together, you know, we'll be looking at July probably. I'll be giving you a task order to stretch that project support budget, right? We are supposed, that budget got us through till September of last year. And then we got a year extension because of COVID. We haven't really done much, some in the project support, but we'll need an amendment to finish out to this September, and we'll add in the closure report for that.
So knowing all that, really, we don't really have 35,000 left of the petroleum funds.
You got about 30,000. So as we, just to be safe, 30,000.
And
And
so,
as we talked about, it could be, you know, some quick hitting phase 1s. You know, you have, you know, people that tend to reach out very quickly and, hey, I need a quick phase one for this project.
But they have to be phase ones that are tied with the petroleum. You have to find a petroleum component in them.
You know, on a phase one, it's a lot easier to spend petroleum funds because you got to do a phase one to figure out what the concerns are.
Okay.
When you identify what the concerns are, that they say, okay, it's not petroleum related.
So in theory, we could do like 8 phase ones, something like that.
Yeah, you know, depending on the size.
All right. Well, we'll think about we'll come back to this under new business, but let's keep going if Jim's okay for Amy to continue.
Yep.
I have a question though, before we go too much further. The 600,000 you were mentioning before, Amy.
Yep.
That is just like a rough estimate that
Right
what
now
it's
it
going to
is.
need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right now it is. All they did for me in order to have this meeting was to set up tables with quantities in our standard up-to-date contractor pricing. So for example, you know, 40,000 square feet of floor tile at $9 a square
Right.
foot for abatement, that kind
Okay.
of thing.
Okay, okay, good. Thank you. Yes, please carry on then, Amy. Okay, go ahead.
We covered the expenditures, so just quarterly report. So we're up to date with EPA and our quarterly reporting. We'll have another one due at the end of June. And by August, we should be having our last meeting, representing, you know, the closure report to be handed in, you know, September. And whatever you guys go forward with grant funding for.
Okay. Any questions on that? Anyone? Okay, Amy. Grant expenditures too?
Yeah, we just sort of covered that with what was left in the grant.
Okay. All right, good, good. Any other questions?
This is Tucker Braddock. I have one simple question. We have a task order for $37,000, and that is to determine roughly what the abatement cost is and ultimately what the tear down cost of the YMCA would be under that task order. Where did the $35,000 or the $30,000 come from?
I'm not sure. When you say the 37, that came out of hazardous, and that
Hazardous?
yeah, hazardous substance, and that 37,000, Tucker, isn't just for the cost estimate. It's for designing all the floor plans for abatement, right? We use CAD to show the contractors where to abate, how to abate, and then it's written specifications that you put out to bid for a contractor to do the demo. You know, when you're in a
Right.
city, you kind of got to guide them on all the protections so you don't
Yeah,
have
I
a
think-
mishap.
Amy, I think I understand that, but so that's the $37,000, but now you're talking $30,000 coming back into it from somewhere else for maybe a petroleum.
Oh, I
Consider-
see what you mean. Our first task order for the YMCA included doing a phase 2 site assessment and a
Right.
tank removal, but we haven't been able to get in there and do that, so we're kind of in a holding pattern. Yeah,
So-
But the money's been allocated already. We don't
Right.
count that. That's not left of that 30. That's already it's already spent, but it hasn't been spent.
right. Like if Deanna came back and said, hey, we can't give you access, we can't
All
get
right,
in
so
there.
Tucker,
I'm
the
very much-
30,000 is the total unexpended amount from the entire grant. Am I correct on that, Amy?
Deanna, put up that sheet I sent you.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Second. 1 second.
And you can scroll down to task
course.
order 16 and 20.
I thought you said there was like
I had
30.
it all up and then you said you didn't need it, so I gotta get it again. Hold on.
I thought you had said earlier that you had about 35,000 left over, but you needed to go and take some money for closing out the report.
Yep,
So
Yeah, we'll go,
that would be leaving us with about 30,000 left. I think that's where the 30,000 that Tucker is coming up with.
okay.
All right, so can
no,
you see the screen now? Can you guys see
Yeah.
everything? Okay.
So this is my budget update. So scroll down, Deanna. Yeah, okay. So right there, if you see the numbers on the 5, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, those represent our task orders. We have 2 for the YMCA going. Everything totals, yeah, everything totals at the bottom in the yellow. Right?
So this
So
is
Okay.
the total, that's petroleum, this is what's
Right.
hazardous left, that's what they're saying.
That's right, and that's even after the YMCA and all the money we accounted for, that's held just for the YMCA. Even past that, you still have $35,997.
Tucker, does that answer
Okay.
your question?
So, yeah,
Okay.
Do you
so
see that, Tucker? Do you see that?
Yeah. can't
So
see it.
what Amy was saying was we could do potentially some phase ones, even though petroleum usually goes for petroleum. When you do a phase one, you're like, well, we don't know if there's petroleum, so that's how you can spend it, because we don't know. And so we
No,
can spend it that way. And usually they're about, I'm not going to underscore you here, but a phase one has been about 3,500
Right.
that way. So let's just, for argument's sake, 3,500. That means in theory, if we had time and we had interest, we potentially could do 10 phase ones, but they would have to be not giant projects. This is a small site, 134, 142 property. So we're not talking big buildings, we're talking smaller sites. A big building would be more. And
Right.
we probably don't have a lot of time to do that necessarily too.
And one example that I had brought up was, let's say, city recently, foreclosed on a property that had a underground storage tank and the city wanted to remove it. So, that could be something where you can use that 35K in one project.
Right.
Okay.
But city can't be responsible. It can't be the responsible party for the contamination. You would have had to foreclose for a reason.
Yeah.
Can't be
Right.
like the fire department tank leaked and you want to use this money, you guys would be the responsible party.
Okay, we have that, those funds are available to us until September, Amy?
Yes, however, I caution you with anything you want to tee up for this, you really should tee it up in the next month. Talk about it at the June RDA so that we can be ready by July and finish by September.
So would it be fair for me to mention to the RDA, I guess, to get your approval? Do you want me to try to go out and I could get Claire from the day to do an article town update of what projects we've done with the APA money, and that we have about a month to do non-residential properties? We could, I hate to say municipal, we could do municipal properties or non-residential because we weren't doing any residential as part of this. And see if there's anybody that bites in the next month, but they would have to turn around, really quick. We're not talking about like the Chestnut Street Mill, which is huge, something
Right.
like that.
Right.
But smaller size properties, maybe you want me to try to get out there, get the word out that way?
Yeah, I don't think we have anything to lose by trying to get the word out. I hate to see this, the funds not get spent.
Okay.
Wouldn't it have to be petroleum related? So somebody who thinks
Right.
they may have an underground tank or something of that nature?
But the argument Amy's saying is the way that for phase one, they need to determine that. So you can use petroleum funds because you're determining if they have it. If they have one, that's even better. But, in the sense of, then we could say, not only can we assess it, we can also potentially remove it as part of the assessment.
Now, I'll caution to say, if you're going out to private property owners, sometimes the coordination takes a little more. The quick low hanging fruit is city departments, hey, DPW, hey, you're in the planning and zoning land use over there, Deanna,
Well,
but
I guess what I could do is I can talk to Pat with a few properties that, see, the problem is we get some of those properties by foreclosure, but they're not necessarily in our hands yet. There's a few of them we've been trying to sell, other ones So they may be out of our hands, but that's where that in-between time is, like ones that, you know, we have a couple that probably would maybe be eligible that we could look at for, see if there's
Right.
underground tanks, but the problem is they're not in our hands yet, and it's gonna hold it up. You know how it is been dealing with trying to get
Right.
our attorneys to move fast. It's
You,
slow.
you
What
can
if-
go back to like the historic commission, but it can only be used in that case for petroleum and tanks, not their lead or asbestos issues.
Yeah,
What about
we
98
have-
Washington?
98, oh,
98
the Cassidy House, we don't own it yet. Can't do anything there.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's what I said, I have a
Well-
few of them in my head that, you know, could be good, but we don't own it yet. But, you know what, the Historical Society they got a lease on, property, oh God, the Dia Manning House. It's an old house there. I wonder if Dia Manning House might have a tank in the ground. And they're gonna use that, they wanna, you know, rehab that and use it as a historic museum. I can find out.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think about that one, you guys?
How about this as an idea? We have a tax sale coming up this month, in the month of June. Let's take a look at those properties that we're trying to, I mean, we own them. But why not see if we can clean those properties so that someone who may be buying these properties will at least end up with a clean piece of property. Let's take the example, 702 Norwich to London Turnpike. It's a burned out a burned out very large house right across from the golf course. Are there any tanks in that property? If there are, can we get them out?
That's a good point, Tucker. That's a good idea.
I mean, let's clean the slate for these people who are going to be buying these properties.
We'll have
I'm
to
not-
look
these
at that tax sale list, Tucker, because
Yeah,
I don't think that we necessarily always get them and send you the tax sale right away. Because Stacy, are you familiar with that? Because lately,
Yeah, a lot of the properties that are on the tax sale right now are vacant lots.
Yeah,
I
Oh,
mean,
there's
I
some
can go
property-
back and look at it again, but a lot of them are empty lots. These
What-
little,
is the list online yet or anything for it?
yes,
I'll
yeah,
look.
it's online.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of houses that may be questionable, but anyway, if we could just take a real quick look and see if the city owns any of these houses, and if we can take some of that money and get these tanks out of the ground or cleaned up, that'd be,
Good use of the
Make the
money,
ta-
that's right. And
Yeah.
pretty easy to do if we already own it.
we
Okay,
already own them.
why don't we
Yeah.
all kind
I
of,
would suggest also contacting public utilities and see if they have anything on, say, a hot list of in-ground tanks on any of their properties that they might be interested in.
But again, Amy said it can't be ones that they've caused if it's their thing, like
Correct.
it has to be like this other thing was like a tax sale. We just getting that in our hand. We didn't have anything to do with it. MPU, it would have to be properties that they have because of utility collecting for foreclosure for utilities. And usually Mark, those go to me. And I know, you know, we get those taken care of pretty quick.
Right.
All right.
It can't be a tank that they have used.
All right.
Okay.
okay, I'll do it. I'll look into it and a little bit and maybe Tucker and Deanna.
Yeah, I'll look tomorrow and see what's on the tax list and then we'll see. And I'll talk to I need to get, obviously, if we're gonna get into these properties to do this, we need to make sure that our attorney's gonna let us do that. And that there's not gonna be a problem with doing that on the tax sale and before a tax sale. And also, to make sure our public works department's comfortable with it too, if they've already secured some of these properties. So,
Okay,
okay, but I'll
Yeah.
look into it tomorrow.
okay,
Thank you.
okay, good.
Thank you, Tucker. That was good.
Thank you.
So go back to the agenda here. So Amy's covered these.
Right, so we just finished up item 5, so let's move on to new business, item 6.
Which was part of what we kind of just talked about, I think.
It is.
Trying to figure out what, going
Yes.
forward, and I will look at stuff tomorrow. I'll make myself a note, and Amy, and I could talk to you, Stacy, too, if there's anything that jumps out, or Tucker. And then I'll think about MPU, but no, I don't have any other new business for you this evening.
I have a question. Rich here.
Go ahead,
Um,
Rich.
So if the grant runs out in September and we're down to $35,900 some odd dollars right now, and I understand moving ahead to try to find how to expend that. What's in place for us to work on after September 30th?
Well, this RDA was brought back together specifically for this grant. They weren't doing any business for a while. It was part of our grant application to have a committee. We thought the RDA would be the right committee to work on this. So when the grant is over, there's no reason specifically to call you forward at this time for any other projects unless it falls within your scope of what your agency does. And I think this was assigned through the grant to be this agency to do this.
Do you think that there's other issues out there, and is there opportunities to go and pursue additional grants that we ought to continue to pursue?
So the RDA wouldn't apply for the grants. The city would go for the grants, and we would do just like we did this time. We would assign a committee to go, say that we got assessment grant to do let's just say that the YMCA. The city could at that point decide if they needed a committee to oversee that or not. It could be that we just get the grant and we clean it up and then we demo it. We don't necessarily need the RDA involved in that. I don't know what your next charge would be. I off the top of my head, Rich, I don't have a charge. In our planning department, because it's not even necessarily that the planning department you're not a land use commission that I normally deal with. So, I don't know necessarily. And our city attorney is very reluctant to have boards and commissions meet if they don't have the business up that they are normally assigned to do. So we may not meet for a little while unless there is something that you need to work on. I mean, members probably could be involved with the plan of conservation and development, in recommending that. We'll be looking for people to staff the implementation committees on right now, but we're going to be doing the next plan of conservation and development, and having RDA members on there would be helpful.
All right, thank you.
I don't have a good answer, I'm sorry.
No, I was just wanted to know what the way ahead would be,
Yeah.
as far as our responsibilities, or this thing that we fade
Yeah.
away.
Can
Well,
any
that's
of the
pretty-
unexpended funds be used for administrative costs to apply for new grants? No.
No,
Okay.
No,
okay.
we have no citizens on the call, just so you know. There's no one on the
Oh,
call.
none of the citizens are there today, that's right. Well, okay, then item 8. This could be so Deanna, you're saying this could be our last adjournment for
No,
quite some
not
time?
really, because Amy,
No,
we
we
need
need
to
to
come
do it.
back with Amy in July, so we may.
Okay,
probably
oh,
won't-
that's right, July.
And because.
July or June,
Ahead.
will we have the June meeting and have the results in July, or July will be the last meeting?
Well, I think we'll play that by ear then. Okay, I
Okay.
misspoke there a minute ago. So,
What I was thinking though, Jim, is if I have interest, I get the word out there about the grants or small, then again, I'll make it in such a way that it's not like you call, you obviously you're gonna get a grant, you'll be,
Mhm.
so I'll definitely say there's interest, contact us, whatever, if you're interested in doing a phase 1, we're looking for small projects, potentially tanks in the ground, non-residential, that kind of thing. And if I can get some, we will definitely meet next month because we want to approve those task orders, okay?
yep,
Oh, Dan, I just had another idea. What about the Calkins house?
We could do that. I don't, that was kind
I
of
don't-
like, and I'll tell you what the scoop is. Hawkins House is sort of like the issue, I think Amy, you might have spoke with her too, is sort of like the Leffling Well House. It's, it's Amy really provided, they have more questions more about the lead paint and things like that. It wasn't, I mean, we could do potentially a phase 1 for them. I don't know, it might help them with grant funding. We didn't end up doing a phase 1 for Leffing Well. I think you didn't. Do you want to explain why? I remember, Amy, there was a reason we didn't do that. You just gave them some advice off the record kind of thing.
Yeah, they had us come out there because they had a grant already in hand, right? That grant was for actual construction, but they had asked if hazardous building materials had been done. So when I walked out there for that Leffingwell house, at least, They had already started the abatement and gutting themselves, like
This
with
is the
sledge.
Town Street one, right next to Leffingwell.
Oh, okay, so the Town Street one. So, you know, I said not to do anything unless they were forced to do it by their funding source, like ask them to get specific about what testing they wanted. But that, you know, they really shouldn't have lay people in there doing the work. And
But
so
But was it also kind of like with the same thing with Hawkins House, it says 1650s, early 1790s? Could it open a can of worms for them as far as that's?
well, what happened is when I walked in and the materials were scattered all over and they had already removed some of them, if I did sample and it was found to be a certain kind of material, that opens a can of worms because, you know, by state law, asbestos is regulated.
And I think, Stacy, to answer your question, I think they've been in there doing work in that house. They've started like cleaning it out and doing things. So, I mean, I could ask them, but if they've been in there doing kind of like 2 Town Street was doing with volunteers, it could be a can of worms.
Okay, and my other thought, what about 20 Huntington?
I was thinking of that,
Huntington's another one that's an old historic one, but that one's completely stripped to the bones. I mean, you could look at that, you know, that's one that could, we gotta decide what you guys are gonna do with that sucker.
Well, I'd really like to just demo that.
No,
but
they're not
we're
gonna
gonna-
let you. It's on the register. It's not being demoed.
It's too close to the road.
It doesn't matter. Sell.
Sell.
Deanna,
Keep in mind,
Sell it.
yeah,
the
hello,
money, the money,
Deanna,
Yes.
Deanna, let me ask you, since you mentioned Huntington, and what is the status, because we used to discuss that at the Dangerous Buildings Committee. What is the status of that committee?
Of the
We
David
haven't met
Wilson.
we haven't met in over a year, I think.
They
Yeah,
weren't
but
meeting because of the Zoom thing, I think, for a while. I think they weren't meeting, and they weren't meeting because a lot of the things that, and again, this is not my board of commission, that's the building officials board, but I believe it's also because nothing was moving forward with the property maintenance as far as enforcement and things, because they could not have hearings. There was no hearings. They weren't doing it. The attorneys did not want to do Zoom type hearings with the public. So they are just now starting up again. Is a backlog of all this enforcement hearings that Brittany has for housing code and for blight, and that's just starting up now. So that's probably
Okay.
another reason they haven't met, because they don't have anything really to report. It's been just going after, and then just everything's kind of been in a holding pattern, going after the problem
Okay.
properties.
Okay, because that Huntington Avenue house was a hot topic of discussion on several of the meetings.
Yeah, but I think that the issue, just on jumping on that, I don't want to get too much off into the weeds, but
Right.
it's so far gone in the sense that it's been stripped. It was not really an appropriate one for you guys to do an oversight of somebody rehabbing it, I think. So they didn't want to get into that, at least when Jim Toger was there, didn't feel like it was appropriate for that. So we're at the point now that I've asked the Public Works Committee that if they could just sell it with the caveat that it's on the National Register, so someone who buys it needs to know that if they try to demo it, not the city, that it'll be, you know, somebody's going to intervene on that and do that. But the city owning it, it's just like when we own any historic building, it becomes us problem taking care of it. We're not taking care of this one, so we need to like get it out of our hands or do something. Stacy, you're rubbing your face. You're agreeing.
Okay.
Somebody
Yeah,
will buy it. Real estate is hot now. There's no inventory.
Well, this one is
right, but this
literally
is a hot
shell.
mess.
It is a shell. I mean, you can look through it and you can see the outside through the boards. It's literally like a barn.
Oh, yeah.
shell, that kind
Yeah, I've been there.
of, you know.
There are people who've been sitting on their hands for 18 months. They're
Well,
looking
the
for
problem-
projects.
It's supposed to be, and again, I wouldn't say it's a problem, so I clarify this, not a problem, but it was supposed to be investigated by the city historian. It supposedly has maybe some ties, potential ties to the Freedom Trail and
The Underground Railroad
free
and
slaves and Underground Railroad and all that. So that makes it very significant in that sense. And the state, when we talked to them about it, we're like, we want to know this history before if they went out and looked at it, kind of agreed it's in bad shape, but if it's got history, there's no, getting around it. So
Okay.
I don't think the city's gonna move forward to put money into it for the history of it. So it's gotta get into private hands, I think, that somebody that cares. I think it'd be in the right hands of someone that cared about it and wanted
On
to.
auction day, we're playing a bunch of patriotic songs at full volume outside, right?
Yeah, and the auction's in July.
Oh, okay.
I looked it up.
I
It's
just-
July 7th.
So you have to find the paper page which says how many there are, Stace?
Yeah, I just forwarded the email to you.
Okay.
There's a bunch of trailers on there.
Let's see, City of
Stacy,
Norwich.
would you forward-
Stacy, that's all on the website, right?
Yeah, I'm calling it up.
Yes.
You guys, it says there,
Stacy,
but I don't see where it
would
says
you forward,
the address is.
No, it takes you
Oh,
to a link to
okay,
the
here's the link.
state's website where it shows you the date and the list of properties.
Okay.
Okay, I'm
Tucker,
calling.
if you want me to forward that to you, I will.
that would be very kind. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
Stacy. I'll send you tomorrow some information to Amy. So I guess that's it. We'll look at these properties, see if there's anything again, but if I may get pushed back of, hey, don't make anything take longer.
Okay,
You gotta get things moving.
sounds good. Okay, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Tucker Braddock, so moved.
Second,
Oh,
Stacy
okay.
Stacy did the second. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye, okay. It's a unanimous, meeting is over. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Melinda. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. And Amy, we'll give you I will get on with the press about this and try to find a nice way to put it out or a little press release. Okay?
Have a happy Memorial Day. We're having
Yeah.
a parade in Norwich this year, so.
I'll be there. You marching?
Are you
No.
marching, Mark? No?
No.
Stacy's marching. She's always marching.
I'm always marching.
Always
Yeah.
marching. All right. Take care,
All
guys.
right.
Bye, Richard.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye,
good
everyone.
evening, everybody. Yep,
Bye,
thank
Brenda.
you.
Bye, Tuck.